ladies and gentlemen, we're going to keep this one short and sweet. At least we're going to try to here on a Friday. The Jets finally settling on a general manager. It is Darren Mougey. He is going to take over as the general manager of this team and team up with Aaron Glenn. Let's talk about it. So the Jets ending their long, tortured search for a general manager as they finally find their man in Darren Mougey. He is going to be the guy to team up with Aaron Glenn as the new executive in that front office for the New York Jets. And let's just be honest with each other here. This is a name that kind of flew under the radar up until just the last couple of days because the assumption was going to be that Lance Newmark was going to team up with Aaron Glenn. That's what we were led to believe on Tuesday when Glenn and Newmark were going in for their second round of interviews. And for whatever reason, it did not work with Newmark, and the Jets reopened their search. They brought in Mougey. They brought in Trey Brown, who is a senior executive at the Cincinnati Bengals. They interviewed both guys. Both guys have very similar resumes from the standpoint that they're both have dabbled in player personnel as well as scouting, and then have risen up the ranks within both of their organizations, and both are the age of 39. And the Jets, at the end, decided to go with Mougey, who has an impressive resume. He really does. You look what he has been able to put together really a short time, just about 10 years, starting with the Broncos back in 2012 as an intern, working his way up through pro personnel and scouting. He was an area scout as recently as 2019, and then caught on with George Payton, the general manager of the Denver Broncos. Also caught the eye of Sean Payton when he came over there just the last couple of years, and has risen from assistant director of college scouting to director of player personnel, and then assistant general manager. So his eye on players and his ability to pick players is something that caught the eye of people in the Denver Broncos, and he has risen up the ranks in the NFL. And he is now going to take over as the Jets general manager. Obviously, with the Sean Payton connection, that's something that is obvious in this, right? Aaron Glenn having worked with Sean Payton back during the days in New Orleans, and now here is Mougey having worked in Denver here under Sean Payton in many ways, putting in a word and playing a hand in getting the Jets their new duo, if you will, at head coach and general manager. So now the Jets, for the most part, are set. Is it perfect? Is it ideal from the standpoint of having a first-year head coach, first-year GM? Not really. Obviously, and I've said this before, and we all know that this is true. Everyone has been saying it. Ideally, the Jets should have gone out there and hired a general manager first. Ideally, you want someone with experience in this position. But this is the Jets. This is what they do. They targeted Aaron Glenn as their go-to guy at head coach. They were concerned, especially after Detroit got knocked out of the playoffs just last weekend, that they would lose out on Glenn if they didn't pounce quickly because other teams were interested. The Saints were very interested. Cowboys were interested. Jaguars were interested. So they had to act fast. They got Glenn. They got him in the building, signed, sealed, and delivered. And then went ahead and found a general manager who they believe, and I'm sure Aaron Glenn played a very big role in that he believes that he can get along with and work with, and that is going to be the biggest thing. Can these two guys be on the same page, and how well they're going to work together? I think one thing the Jets should do, and if Woody Johnson were smart, and I notice others have been posting about this as well, go out there and find an experienced football executive who could be kind of the football czar or a director of football operations, just to kind of be over the two of them so you can eliminate what has been a problem for the Jets over the years, where you have the GM and the head coach either close to or being on the same wavelength and then having to report to the owner, and we all know what a mess that's turned into over the last couple of years, culminating in what we saw last season, and especially out of that article that came out in the Athletics. So to avoid all that and avoid all the drama, I think the Jets should go out there and get a football czar, experienced football executive who has been around the block a little bit, if you will, to kind of be that buffer and to kind of also lend a helping hand. And the Jets could certainly use some experience in that department. Maybe it's going to be Phil Savage, who's there already as an assistant GM, veteran, as a senior assistant. Maybe it's someone else. Maybe, I don't know if Mike Tannenbaum is going to get more involved. I know he's now part of the 33rd team that's been a big part of orchestrating this search for the Jets. We'll have to wait and see. So now for the Jets, they have their coach, they have their GM, and now it's just about building a staff. Nick Cali is a guy to watch. He is the passing game coordinator of the LA Rams. A lot of people compare him to a Sean McVay type. Certainly it helps that he's on that staff, obviously. He could be the Jets' offensive coordinator. I think he's going to be in demand because you have more positions starting to fill out here. Pete Carroll, now the head coach of the Raiders. Liam Cohen in that bizarre situation in Jacksonville as he now leaves Tampa Bay officially from his role as OC. Now he goes to the Jaguars to take over as the head coach. So I think Nick Cali could be in demand. So the Jets, if they feel he is their guy, they have to go out and get him. I also think another name out there, Bobby Slowick, who was just released by the Houston Texans. And I know the Texans had an uneven year offensively, but Slowick was a guy who was very heavily thought after in head coaching circles as a candidate. Wouldn't be a bad idea if the Jets end up losing on Cali or Clint Kubiak or however, just to kick the tires and see what's going on with Bobby Slowick to see if he would be interested in being the Jets' offensive coordinator moving forward. So it's about building that staff, finding that OC that is so very important for Aaron Glenn. And as long as Glenn and Mougey have the say and are going out there, the two of them working together to pick these guys and find guys that can work well with Aaron Glenn and that he approves of, then I'm all for it. It can't be a situation where Woody Johnson has to have final say. Woody, stay out of the way. You picked your coach, you picked your GM, now back off and just let them do their job, and let's see if they can turn this thing all the way around. Folks, like and subscribe. Leave your thoughts below. How do you feel about Darren Mougey now taking over as the Jets general manager? Talk to you next time.